Hey robot makers, hope you're having a good day so far. So do you want to monitor your plants, detect volatile gases, whatever they are, accurately measure temperature, pressure, humidity around your house and office, and feed all that data into a real-time dashboard? Then this is the show for you. So let's dive straight in. My name's Kevin. Come with me as we build robots, bring them to life with code, and have a whole load of fun along the way. So today's show, I've hit the promotion flag simply because some of the Enviro products I'll be showing today were sent to me kindly by the team over at Pimoroni. Really thankful to those guys for sending me these things. But I've actually purchased quite a few of my own ones of these as well. So I think the Grow hat one is one I purchased. That was for the Raspberry Pi Zero back in the day. Okay, so let's get over to our keynote. Oops, and let me just rewind my keynote for a second. And let me just find, there we go. That's better. I was just trying some stuff out beforehand. Okay, so why is that still not to the right place? Let me get my dashboard right. Let me just try that again. Got the touch bar on the Mac here, and it's supposed to help you navigate your slides. Nah. Okay, so this is all about the Pimoroni Enviro range. So they've really ramped up the number of products that are available in this Enviro range. So I wanted to sort of dip into this today because they are simply amazing. I'm not paid to say this. I'm really just generally that enthusiastic about it. So we have the Enviro Indoor, the Enviro Urban, the Enviro Weather, the Enviro Grow, and coming soon, the Enviro Camera. And at the end of this show, we'll also dip into some questions and answers if you've got any questions, and I'll try and answer them the best I can. So the previous generation of the Enviro was mainly these products, and correct me if I'm wrong, Hell, I've got somebody from Pimoroni on the show today who can help me just in case I get anything missed there. So the Enviro Plus, which is what I have on my desk, I shall show you this on the overhead in a minute. I've got that currently running. That has some quite good sensors on it. It's got a light sensor as well as the gas sensor and the particle sensor. And the particle sensor can detect all kinds of things like mold spores. It can detect combustion particles and pollen, things like that. So it stratifies them into sort of 3 different layers, and you can track them, and we'll have a look at it shortly. So that was the previous one. You can see the big blue thing behind it there. It's actually really small. It's about the size of a matchbox. That's a fan in it. It sort of pulls across air across the sensor, and a little laser beam just detects the sort of size and frequency of these things and figures out what they are, classifies them. So that was the Enviro Plus. It's got a really nice little screen on it there. We have the Grow hat mini, which I think I also have. Yep, that's the one I just showed you here. So I had this one. This one grew my chilies, which are in the garden at the moment. The little chilies are just coming out as we speak. So this was for the Raspberry Pi Zero. As you can see there on the back, it's got the Raspberry Pi Zero. And the idea is you plug that in. There's a couple of sensors which I have on the overhead. We'll have a look at those in a second as well, that you plug into the soil, you put into the soil, and they can detect moisture and so on. And one of the things with this is it requires constant power. So when this was in my kitchen on the windowsill, I had it on a nice little stand, and I had the sensors going into the 3 pots. And we can only sell these nice little chili pots. We'll have a look at those in a minute as well. Sort of really cute sized little plant pots. And yeah, it requires constant power, so I had to sort of have this thing plugged in, constantly monitoring, and it would sort of alarm. There would be a buzzer that would sound, and you could also get it to trigger like what MQTT to say, feed me, that kind of thing. And then also the weather. So I've actually not upgraded my weather yet. I've got the Enviro Weather here. And I do think this is an upgrade. So the one I've got is the picture you can see there. It's just behind me in the room, and that's connected to the rain sensor, the wind sensor, which can do wind speed as well as wind direction. It's an anemometer, I think it's called, and it can also do light levels. But the light levels are monitored from inside the summer house, not outside. So what I'm going to do is put this one in a Stevenson screen, which I have here. This comes as part of the accessory pack for the Urban, and I think you can get that as part of the Weather as well. And the idea is you can put this with a battery pack inside the screen, plop this on, attach this with some wire ties or screws or however you want to do that. This thing sort of slides off, so you can attach these things quite nicely to a pole. So I've got an aluminium pole attached to the side of the robot lab, and on the top of that is all the wind sensor stuff, the rain detector and so on. And on the bottom of here, there are simply 2 connectors for the connector kit. So the actual sensors themselves, they are sensors. they come as a separate kit, so you can buy them individually or as a separate kit. But again, the Weather hat required constant power because it was powered by a Raspberry Pi, and I've got a Raspberry Pi, I'm thinking it's a 3 or a 4 that's judging by the thing that's connected to the front of it there, I think it's probably a 4. Yeah, you need some kind of Raspberry Pi, which is quite a lot of power for something that's just monitoring, you know, small amounts of data occasionally. It does have the nice screen on the front as well, though, so I do like that, although I'm not currently using it on mine. So that was the previous range of products. Here we've got John as well on the chat. Hey John, how's it going? Oops, just why did I move that over there? Let's put that back. Right, so the new range, and correct me, no pressure now that John's watching. So the new range of Enviro products looks like this. So we've got the Indoor and the Urban, and they are very similar to the original Enviro Plus, but the Indoor is a sort of more stripped back version. I bought quite a few of these because I absolutely love them. So I have one just here, and I've got a little battery pack connected to this. So I can show you this in more detail in a second on the overhead, but that's what it looks like. It's got this really nice BME 688 sensor on it, and that can do volatile organic compounds, as it says on the front there, VOC, temperature, pressure, humidity. It can do light levels, and it can also do colour, so it can detect the colour temperature of the room that you're in to see if you're getting too much blue light from like screens and TVs, and you can measure that and see what that looks like. And it also has this amazing little battery connector, so we can have this so it's really low power. We'll get into the power management shortly. And then on the back we can see we have the Raspberry Pi Pico W, which is the big Wi-Fi chip there, and we have a reset button as well, so it comes with the Captain Resetty thing as well. We also have these really nice little LEDs on the front, so if I press this poke button here, you can see there's like a little hand that says poke. If I press that, it'll take a reading, and then it'll immediately power down. So there we go, it's taken a reading, it's powered down. We'll have a play with this again shortly. And one of the things I've done is I've created this really cute little 3D printable Stevenson screen, but this can all fit inside perfectly like that. And then there's a little lid that we can screw into place, so this can sit on a windowsill or, you know, on a bedside table or wherever you want to put this, and it'll basically just stay there sending readings up to your MQTT broker, or however you want to do that. You can use Adafruit, IO, lots of different options. We'll get into all that shortly as well. So that's the Indoor. The Urban, I've actually got that outside of my robot lab as we speak, and that's similar to the Indoor, but it has the particulate sensor, a bit like the Enviro Plus that we looked at just a moment ago. So that can do all these really different types of particle, and it can stratify them into sort of 3 or 4 different groups of particles. So really, really small ones to slightly larger ones. And I've got that outside in a Stevenson screen, very similar to this one. And that means that I can have it outside taking actual readings rather than it being inside an air-conditioned room that's got filters and all kinds of stuff. So it really wouldn't detect very much going on there. And in fact, I can compare the two sensors, which is quite interesting. So one of the reasons I bought many of these Enviro Indoors is because I want to place them in different parts of the house and see what the different temperature zones are. So when it's really hot, like it has been the past couple of days, we can see which is the most cool room to be in, and you know, see how that changes over the day. And there's also some other fun things you can do that we'll get into that shortly. So that's the Urban. There is the Weather. We're going to have a bit of a deeper dive into each of these as well. So then the Weather one, which is the one I just pulled a moment ago. So that has the rain and the wind sensor connectors on the front there, and it also has the light sensor, and also has the BME 280, which is the slightly less capable chip, but it can do temperature, pressure and humidity very, very accurately. It just doesn't do the volatile organic compounds, but we don't need that. We can get the Urban to do that for us as well. So that's what the Weather looks like. Again, we can put that inside like a Stevenson screen, connected up to the little connectors there. They're like old-fashioned phone line connectors. They RJ not 45, is it? That's the network one, isn't it? I can't remember which one it is now. Then we have the Grow, so the Enviro Grow, which I've got plugged in here. We're going to provision this one in a minute and have a play with this, so I've actually got it plugged into a wire there. And we can also see that it's LEDs sort of flashing away there because it's telling us it's waiting to be provisioned. So we're going to do some live provisioning, John, and see how that works. It's really, really cool. So what I love about the Grow is, again, the original one required being connected all the time, power. And this one doesn't. You can just plug in a battery pack. You can get a battery pack as an accessory, and RJ11, that's what it is. Thank you, John. You can get a battery pack on this and basically just take a couple of readings every now and again. And we'll get into how often and what kind of things. Now, what I really like about this, we'll get into it, like I said, in a bit more detail in a minute. You can have these pumps, and these pumps can pump water using a tube like this from a source of water, like a little watering can, or I was thinking kind of like a ice cream Tupperware box, that kind of thing, with water, and then the plants will be sat on top. And yeah, this can take some readings every couple of minutes or half an hour, however often you want, really. And then coming soon is the Enviro Camera. So I haven't got any more information on that one yet, but we have got some information from the website, and maybe John can tell us a bit more that's going on. What I love about this, they're collectible. They're like Pokemon cards or something. I love all the little icons. And if you look at each of the icons, they've all got a little gold highlight on them somewhere. I just love that kind of attention to detail. So on that little house, the window's got the little gold thing. On the Urban, it's right in the middle there. It's the sun on the little Weather one. On the Grow one, this little petal there. And then on the camera, we have the little tail of the little bird there. Absolutely love stuff like that. Cool. So let's dive into some of these in a bit more detail. So the indoor, like I said, I've got a whole bunch of these. I just couldn't help myself but buy more. I just like to have the data. So we have the Quest connector on the side. That means we can plug in even more sensors to these if we want and take them to the next level. If we didn't like the sensor that's on there, we can just have an extra sensor in there. We could have a CO2 sensor, for example, plugging in. I think I have one of those somewhere, although I'm not going to dig it out right away. But yes, I've got one of those as a breakout garden, and you can just have a little breakout garden to I think I do have one of these actually on the desk here. It's just here. In fact, that's a finger. Yes, that's a fingerprint reader of some kind. So you can get these little connectors, adapters, which will do from a breakout garden to a Quest connector, which is just that little white thing like that. So you can mix and match these as you wish. They're a lot easier to sort of solder using something like that. So that opens up all kinds of possibilities. We've got the poke button. Love that. The little icon of the hand there. And you can use that to sort of take a reading immediately, but it's completely user programmable. So you can decide what you want to do with that yourself. We have a warning LED, a little flag. And then we also have the user activity LED as well. I don't know if I've got those the right way around actually, but the user activity LED again is programmable. We can set that ourselves. I think I have got them the wrong way around there. Then we have the sensor at the very bottom there. That little square thing is the BME 688 chip, and that can do volatile organic compounds. They're things that are sort of hazardous to human health or organic health in larger quantities, so we want to make sure we don't breathe any of those in too often. We have the pressure, temperature and humidity all in there as well. We've got the light sensor on the right hand side at the bottom there, which can do light levels as well as colour, so it can detect hues of blue, for example, which we want to detect. And then on the flip side, we have the reset button, we have the battery connector, which I'm using on pretty much all these things now. For me, this is like the killer feature of this, the fact that we can use these anywhere on battery without having to have them powered all the time. Just perfect. So that's the indoor. I'm slightly covering up my chat window there, so I'm just going to rearrange my window for a second. I'll just wait for that to finish doing its little animation, and then I'll just go back to me for a second because I can see that John's saying some things and I don't want to miss what he's saying there. So I just move that over there. There we go, that's better. I can then go back to that. Back to that. Oops, back to that even. Okay, so this is the Urban. So the Urban's got that great big blue particulate sensor, which has got a tiny little fan inside that sort of has the draws the air across the sensor. Really complicated how that works inside, but absolutely love it. Again, we've got the Quest connector, we've got the poke button, the warning LED and the user LED. We've got the reset button, the battery connector, and this does all the things. This is a really great bunch of sensors. So this one can do pretty much what the indoor sensor can do, and it can also do this particulate sensor as well. So it can detect all these different types of particulate matter, and we'll have a look at this on the dashboard in a moment, and we can see all the different gradations of particulate matter that could be in the air that you might want to know about. So we'll get into that shortly. So I just wanted to sort of give you an overview of that one. We can have a look at it in a bit more detail. And that one is, like I said, live outside. I just changed the batteries on it just to make sure it was all happy and good. And then we have the weather. So the weather one has the rain connector, the wind connector at the bottom. We've got the light sensor level, so you can detect light levels. We've got the humidity, pressure and temperature. Don't know why I read that in backwards order. We've got the user activity button with the warning LED and the poke button again, so we can take readings immediately. And we have the battery connector as well on the back and the reset button. So these all come with a Raspberry Pi Pico W aboard, so that's soldered in place using little castellations on the Pico. So it means it's really solidly in place there, and you can, you've got a full Pico there to play with, as well as all these great sensors. So absolutely love the weather one. I'm definitely going to be upgrading to the Enviro Weather shortly. I just need some time to sort of take the wires out, put them in, and provision this one. So we'll have a go at provisioning, like I said, in a moment, because it's really good fun. Okay, so let's get over to the next one. So I think this is the Grow. Yes, again, one of my favourite sensors. I had so much fun with this one, which was the original Grow PHAT Mini. So this one has got the 3 connectors on it for the sensors themselves. So let's have a look at one of these sensors. So now somebody complained in the chat the other day that when I try and use this little window here to focus and it's sort of trying to detect my face, it's really distracting to the flow. So on this one, we'll go to the overhead camera. So over here, we've got one of these capacitive sensors. So they're very different than the other types of sensor that you can get. I was just wondering whether it's worth pulling out one of those. In fact, I probably have got one. I've got a little kit here from Geek Pi that they sent a while ago, and they have one of the cheaper kinds of sensors for soil level. I just want to show you by way of comparison. So we just find that in there. So it looks like 2 prongs. Where's it gone? They have got one in here, I'm pretty sure. Can't actually see it there. Okay, let's just leave that then. I'm pretty sure they had one in here, I just can't see it. Maybe it fell out. Anyway, so basically it's just 2 pieces of metal, and they detect the resistance between the 2 pieces. Now this one's different because it's capacitive, capacitance based, so this means that this is entirely sealed and there's nothing to rust or rot in any way. So this will be, you'll be able to use this sort of time and time again. And on the end there's just a little connector with 3 pins in it. And what we will do is we'll just plug it into the Grow. There's a Grow, for example, and we just plug that into one of the connectors there. It's got A, B and C, and then on the other side we've got the pumps as well. I've just got some blue tack on here because I had this on the desk and I just wanted to sort of stay in place. So if we want to get one of the other sensors, we can plug that in there as well. So it comes with 3. You don't have to use all 3, but the plant pot kit comes with 3 plant pots, so why not? And then we have these little pumps. So these are really, really fun little pumps. The idea is you submerge this in some water and then you connect that up the right way round. They're quite small little connectors, these, so which way round? It does go that way round. There we go. And yeah, and it's got a little connector on it there, little tube. So if you buy the accessory kit, you get these tubes with it. And then you simply just push this over that bit there, like so, and that gets submerged into water. You can have your Grow somewhere nearby, and then that will draw up the water from whatever it's submersed in, and it will give sort of a certain amount of water into the plant, and you can sort of define what that is as well. The other cool thing that this has is a buzzer. So you can see there we've got this little chip there, and that's audible. We can hear that the plants need feeding or need attention in some way. So there we go. Like I said, we'll have a play with the provision in that shortly. So I'll just plug that back in there, like so. And I know it's waiting to be provisioned because that light will start flashing very rapidly just there. You can just about see that LED's flashing there. Okay, so let's go back to the keynote. There we go. And we've got 3 water pumps. We have 3 sensors, so we can have 3 soil detections at the same time with one particular unit. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this is the Enviro Camera. So I've not got much more information on this one, John. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say in the chat about that one. But this is what it looks like. This is what we know so far. So it has the 2 megapixel camera on the front. We've got the usual kind of poke button LED and user activity LEDs, the Quest connector on the side, and it comes with 8 meg of RAM. Now the idea with this, and this is something we haven't talked about yet with all these Enviros, they have insane power management. So this camera, he says, going to keep us guessing, this camera can take a picture, the whole thing can go asleep, and it can save that into its RAM so that the RAM is still active but using very, very little power. And then when there's a spider there just decided to come and join us on the stream. And that means that we're not actually using the Pico at all. It's just using the sort of onboard RAM, so it's even lower power. So then when the Pico wakes up and it's drawing a little bit more power because it's connecting to Wi-Fi and so on, it can just save those readings and that image to the local storage, and then every now and again we can then upload all those things to an endpoint of our choosing. So we'll talk about the insanely great power management in a second, because this is just where it's at. So let's talk power management. So the Enviros will power off after taking a reading. So I've got one, let me just find that one that we had a second ago, which is the Indoor. And we'll plug this in onto the terminal in a second and have a play with it. So if I just press the poke button, let's get this sort of reasonably in camera. You can just see the LEDs come on there. You don't need to see it in focus too much there. But it sort of flashed on for a second, and then it sort of does a half flash and then dies back as the power gets cut. So what it's done is it's just taken a reading from the sensors on board, and then it's written that to a file on the Pico, and then it's gone to sleep, and it's gone into a deep sleep. So the Enviro will then wake itself up in 15 minutes time, or whatever period you choose when you do the provisioning, and we'll have a look at that in a second. It will then wake up and take another reading after that period of time, and then again, there's a setting that you can choose how many readings you want to take before it actually uploads them to your endpoint, and I've chosen 5. So I think on the 5th one, so if I press this 5 times, and we'll do this in the demo, you'll sort of see it take the reading, but instead of going off, it'll then sort of pulse as it's sending that data to your endpoint, and we'll see that captured in Node-RED in real time as we do that. We'll see all 5 readings come through. So it consumes just 20 microamps of power when it's in deep sleep mode. Microamps. It's insane how little power this is actually using. So that means if you've got like 3 AA batteries, you're probably getting around 6 months of usage. So I'm quite interested to see real world usage, what we get. I've gone for the default settings when you provision it, and we'll have a look at that in a second. And you can see on that little chart there on the right hand side that's from Grafana, which we're going to look at in a minute as well, and you can see that the readings come through every 15 minutes. So there's a reading, 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 but they come through as a block all at once. But then you see the history after it's sort of uploaded all those files, so you can then join them together in Grafana as like a solid line, just so that you don't get those sort of points like so. So that's the readings there for, I can't even remember what that one is. That one looks like gas, if it's UGM3. It's a measurement of stuff in the air, I guess. So there we go. Let's move on to the next one, which is endpoint provisioning. This is so good. I think I've got to say, John, the team have done an outstanding job with this. I know you did a lot of the sort of HTML, CSS, and all the code behind it as well. It just looks beautiful. So when you first buy one of these and you plug it in, it'll start doing that rapid flash thing, just like I have here. I've got to take all these wires out because that's going to get painful after a while. There we go. Yeah, so you can see that that's flashing rapidly. Maybe if I turn it around, you can see there a little lights flashing away there, and that means it's ready to be provisioned. So we'll see a new Wi-Fi hotspot up here. We're going to have a play with this in a minute, so don't worry. And then there's a whole nice wizard that you can click through, and you can choose all the options that you want. And then at the very end, you sort of say finish, reset the board, and then it's ready to go. So let's have a play with that in a moment. So just before we do that, If you like my content and you want to help me grow the channel, then please make sure you give this this video a like. Give me a comment. Let me know if you're going to buy any of these. If you bought the previous generation of Pimoroni Enviro products, the hat, the Weather hat, the Grow hat, or the Enviro Plus, or if you're actually looking to buy some of the new ones as well when they're in stock. And also make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you get notified whenever I go live with a new video. And I do go live every single Sunday at 7 o'clock GMT, GMT +1, depending what the summertime is here. I should say British summertime, but GMT, I think everybody universally knows what that is. And there was a milestone that we hit this morning that I just wanted to share with everyone, which is 9,000 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you very much to everybody that's subscribed so far. And if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, help me get to that next major milestone, which is 10,000 subscribers. We should be able to get there by, I reckon, September, October time, something like that. Okay, so let's have a play with provisioning, shall we? So what I need to do now is go over to my desktop. Great, we can see what's going on there. So if I go up to the Mac Wi-Fi thing there, we can see that there's a network that's available to us. If I just hold this one up here, that's actually being provided by the Pico. So the Pico can do captive portals, and this is what this is showing up as. If I click on this, hopefully it won't drop the live stream because I've got two network connections, and then in a couple of minutes, sorry, a couple of seconds time, the captive portal will pop up. Usually it gets triggered if there's any kind of network activity, but there we go. So join the Enviro Grow setup. So this is now being sent from the Pico W to our computer to provision it. Okay, so the wireless monitoring system helps take care of your plants, monitoring moisture levels and auto watering system. We need to take some details to configure your board and get it ready to rock. Ready? Let's go. So let's click on that. So next, what we need to do is give our device a name. So I like where they say Gecko Tank 7. Because people have 7 Gecko tanks. We've got 1 Gecko tank, haven't we, Alex? So if I call this one, this is the Grow. I like to call them by the name of the product. So Enviro-Grow-01. Because I might want to get a few of these. I'm going to leave it all in lowercase just because that's how I like it to be. And they give you some suggestions there. If you've got many Enviros, it makes it a lot easier to manage them if they have sensible names. Perhaps giving them like kitchen, air quality, windowsill, herbs, or Jeff. Okay, so let's click on wireless setup. So it's going to go and detect all my Wi-Fi connections or connections that are nearby. So John, I want you to pay close attention when I do this. I'm going to click on Apple Network Extreme, which is one of the networks I've got here. I'm actually going to type the wrong password in there. I love the cats for life as well. Password, let's just type that in. Which isn't my password, but I just want to show you what that looks like. So let's click logging. So it does say the information is not secure. Let's just ignore that. It's fine. And this is the bit where we can define how often the readings are going to be taken. So we can either say every 5 minutes, which is the shortest battery life, every 10 minutes, every 15. So I go with the recommended every 15. We can do every half an hour, or every 3 hours for the best battery life. And it says there, we recommend taking readings every 15 minutes to allow 2 alkali AA batteries to power your board for around 6 months. So I'm going to go with that at 15, recommended. And then how often do you want to upload these readings? So it's going to capture those, it's going to store them locally as little JSON files on the Pico's file system itself, and then we can then upload them to somewhere. Or not, we can decide if we want to just save them locally and then occasionally just pop this into our computer and take the files off. We can do that too. But I'm going to go for every 5 readings, which is fine. Every 10 readings is the recommended one. Yeah, so let's go with that then actually. And then you can go for every 50 readings, which is for best battery life. Okay, so I'm going to click on uploads. Again, I'm just going to click on that. And the last bit there is, where do you want to upload this data to? So you don't have to do this. You can just have it stored on the Pico W. And when you plug it in, you can see the files in something like Thonny. You can choose a custom HTTP endpoint and you just specify what that is further down. Oops, further down. So if I just scroll to the bottom there, you'll see, where do you want to save that? Do you need credentials for that as well? We can click on InfluxDB. That's coming soon. So I actually use Influx to record the data, but I do that via a broker. So this is what I'm actually going to choose in a minute, but we've got a MQTT broker. So you type in the IP address of that, and then if you need a username and password, you can type that in there as well. And finally, if you want to use something like Adafruit.io, which is a cloud-based service, then you can do that as well. I was laughing at this before, John. I love that. Limo rocks, she does. And then you need your token as well to go with that. So I'm going to go for MQTT broker, and I'm going to type in here the name of, or the IP address of my broker, 68, I think it's 1.152, and then I'm going to click well done, we're done, send that across, and that's it. That's everything that's been written. So there's a little file on the Pico's file system that's called config.py that's written quite a few of those settings too, and then we just need to click on reset the board. I'm going to click on the send thing. I'm going to wait for that to stop finish flashing, and then I don't think this screen goes away, does it, John? I think it just stays here, so we can just instead just press the little reset button on the back, and then I'll just see that it takes a reading and then do whatever it does. So there we go. So I'm just going to click on cancel now, and what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go over to Thonny. So if I go over to Thonny and I just click on that stop button there, I'm now reading the files on the Pico. So if I go over to config.py, we can see all the things that we... So provision 1 means that we've provisioned it. The nickname is the nickname that I gave it. And John, look what happens here. My Wi-Fi SSID has spaces in it. And what it's done here is it's put pluses. I don't know if it's supposed to do that, but I have to go in here and manually edit those out for it to work properly. And then there's my Wi-Fi password that isn't my Wi-Fi password. How many times do you want to keep the files? So 20. How often do you want to wake and read the settings? So the readings every 15 minutes. What's the endpoint? MQTT. How often do you want to upload the data after the 10th reading? And John says that bug's been fixed now. Awesome. And then there's the MQTT settings as well. And if you've got Adafruit ones, they'll be in there as well. So that's that. We've also got a couple of other folders on here. So we have the readings folder and we have an uploads folder. Now we've not got any readings or up things in there yet. So what I'm actually going to do is disconnect this one, and I'm going to plug in the other one that we looked at as well, which is the, where's that gone? The indoor. There it is. There you go. You can tick off on your bingo that I've dropped something on the floor. Which I do every single stream. Okay, so I've now plugged in the indoor one because this has got some readings and we can play with this. If I click on stop there and we look at upload and readings, you can see there, if I open this file up in Thonny, we've got some readings there. So we've got a date stamp, a time that this occurred, and some values, some readings that have happened, which is those there. So we can see that we've got time, temperature, humidity, pressure, luminance, colour value. Now, one of the things I thought was missing off here, John, is gas. So I don't know if that's now been updated in the latest version of the firmware for this, but this has got that volatile organic compounds gas sensor. And I think it's just like when you take a reading from it. So when I looked into Enviro boards and indoor, and there's a bit down here that it says, you know, return the different sensors. I think on there you just add in gas, and then further down when it actually does the get sensor readings, I've added that one in there, gas, round the data. It's the third element of the array, and we just want to round it to 2 decimal points. So I've done that too. So that's the only difference I've made on my board. Everything else is pretty standard. Right, so let's just close all those back up. And what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to check my notes to see if there's anything else I needed to go through, because I don't think... no, so this is the right time to do this. Okay. So if I go back to Thonny, so let's actually run main.py. So this is what happens when we sort of just have the board running by itself. I love this because this you would never see unless you actually run this from the terminal, from Thonny. So let me just stop that and I'll tell you, I'll just close that from there, and I'll just open it up from here and then run it. There we go. So it says Enviro in a nice little banner. Can has data, and you can see there it's doing all kinds of things. So let's just scroll back and see. So hey Enviro, let's go. Performing startup. So it's just doing some bit of housekeeping there, checking on how many blocks it's got free. It's connecting to the Wi-Fi network using the IP address. It's then uploading the cached readings to 192.168.1.152, and there's all the 5-6 files that it had ready. And then it's going to sleep, so it's clearing the real-time clock alarm, setting the timer to wake up in 15 minutes, shutting down, and it says it's on USB power because I've actually got this plugged in, so it can't actually halt, so it's resetting instead. So if I try and do anything on here, it's going to complain that it's actually off because the device is busy. So I can press that button again just for it to take a reading. I think I have to reset that first actually. There we go. So it's going to take a reading and it's going to write that to its file system. So it's done that. It's really, really quick to do. If I just press stop again, we can then see in our readings, we've got a couple more that have appeared, and the upload, that's one that's ready to be uploaded. So what we'll do, I'll show you what this looks like in Node-RED. So let me go over to my browser. I'm just going to go over to me for a second as I grab my browser. There it is. And I'm going to go over to Node-RED, and I'm going to go over to this again. Right, so what I'm going to do now, I want you to see in this section of the screen here, this is the debug window, and I've got 3 node flows that are connected to various different Enviro products. So we've got the outdoor one, which is the Urban, we've got the Weather, the indoor sensor, which is upstairs, so that's in Alex's room where our cat lives, right above the litter box, so we can test out the gas sensor. We have the Enviro Grow, which is just next to us there, and we've got the indoor, which normally goes in our room, but this one is the one I'm holding right now. So what I've got going on here, this is going to basically just take in from that topic, because I've got this set to broadcast any of the readings that it takes to an MQTT endpoint, which is what we're looking at now, and the topic, which is kind of the path that we're sending the data to. So it's Enviro and then the name that we specified when we set this up, so that Enviro-indoor-bedroom. So that's that. I've then got this thing which will convert all those, all those JSON strings. If we looked at the raw data, you'd just see it's like loads of squiggly brackets, and by using this this node here, which basically just converts it from a JSON string to a JSON object, so that makes it a lot easier for us to then do things with in Node-RED. And I found that, I don't know whether this is needed, John, this is just something I found when I was playing around with this, the timestamp that we get from the raw Pico has a space in it, and it's not like a UTC or ISO compliant date, because I think you have to have the time zone in there, or a Z to specify there's no time zone. So what I then do is essentially just, you can just see the data's come through there. I'm just going to show you this just before it disappears. So there you can see we've got the pressure, the gas, the temperature, the color temperature, the timestamp, which has got the Z on the end. We've got the device name, we've got the humidity and the luminance level just behind my head there. And I've got this actually in 2 different array objects, and I'll show you why that's important in a second in Node-RED and also in Grafana, because that makes us be able to sort of specify things differently in the dashboard. So that's the next thing I do after just sorting out this timestamp. So what I do is I read in the timestamp as it comes from the Enviro device, read it into the date variable. I then create a new timestamp, which is equal to that date that I've just read in, and then I just do toString ISO string. So I'm parsing it, and then I'm just writing it back out as an ISO string, and that seems to launder the date properly, no problems. And then finally, I then split the data into 2 parts in an array. Now this is important for Grafana if you want to do things like specify the location of the sensors or the type of sensors. If you want to specify different things like that, you need to create an array object like this in Node-RED. So the first array is whatever data we've just looked through there, which is in that payload. And then the second one, I'm just creating 2 things that I want to be able to sort on in Grafana, which is the location and the sensor. Now, got them both set to the same thing as the name for now, but we might want to have several sensors in the same, say we had a big warehouse and we had loads of these, you might want to have different names for them, but they're all in the same location. And then you might have another location, which is like the office, and then different rooms within that. And then we just set that array to be the payload and then just return the message. And then that shows up as those two things. Right, so what I'm going to do now, we saw the data come through, but I'm going to force that to happen. So that means we haven't got any readings in the device now. So if I press this poke button, it's going to just flash on, take a reading. So that's the first one. I'm going to press it again. It's going to take a reading. And that should be the second one. I'm just going to take it off the USB power for a second, just make sure we're all good. Right, let's do the poke. There we go. We've definitely got one reading. And then that's the second one. So it's on, and it does sort of a half flash, and then the power goes away. So that's two. So then we're doing the third one. Need to do two more. So then there's the fourth reading. So nothing's come through yet on the debug window. All right, so now it's flashing now. We've got more of a pulse going on, and that means it's sending the data up to the MQTT, and there it all comes through. So we can see that we've got 5 different readings, and if I just open these out, you can see that array object that we just split there, and you can see all the readings coming through. So if we look at the time there, that's 1840 with 53 seconds. If I just pick another one, I'm just hiding that with my head at the moment, and that is 45:32 seconds, so it's slightly different timing of that. So that data is being sent to somewhere. So let's have a look what's going on here. So that little window, that little green thing is this debug window, and then I've got 2 databases. And again, this might be just a quirk of Influx, because it's not like a regular SQL database where you define what the column types are. Whatever you define that column to be the first time is what it ends up being, and if you try and set a different timestamp format, it starts complaining about this, saying that this type has already been defined. So I just created another, I think they call them buckets in Influx. So I installed the in the palettes in Node-RED. So if I go to manage palettes, which is just behind my head there, and if I just look on what's installed, why is it not showing me what's installed there? But yeah, I've essentially got Influx. There we go. That's what I've got installed. Node-RED contrib InfluxDB. So that means I can then connect to Influx databases. So if I look on this test one here, I'm just sending this to the weather bucket. So that's what's happening there. So if I now go over to Grafana, this is one I prepared earlier. So the air quality data is coming through there. We can see ultrafine particles. We can see dust, pollen, mold spores. We can see combustion particles, organic compounds, and metals. And because I've got 2 lots of sensors, I'm pulling indoor and outdoor ones. So we can see there currently pollen is trending as the highest particulate that's there. Now, if we had a grass fire on the Winter Hill, which is not too far away from here, we would see that spike right up. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on there. So similar to this, but not quite as refined to the particulate, is the gas sensor, which is on the indoors, the Enviro Indoors. So we can see there, Pepper Pot, that's just above Pepper the cat's litter box, and we have bedroom, which is just our regular room. And we can see there's sort of a spike in the middle of the day of various gases, but if her litter box needs changing, we can see that go really, really, really high as the gas levels peak. Now what's useful to know about that is that we can set triggers and alerts using Grafana, as well as just MQTT and Node-RED. We can set alerts if something is over a particular value, and we can then trigger other things with that. So that's the gas sensors. The wind speed and rain levels are coming from the Grow hat, and that will be shortly the Grow and the Enviro Grow. So that can do the same thing there. The dew point, I think that also comes from the weather. And we've got like the maximum speed, wind speed, I think that is as well there. I've also got all the different temperature readings. If I click on that little drop down, I can actually zoom in on this. So we can see there the sensor that I have in the loft, and this is the past 24 hours that this data is being viewed over. We'll create a dashboard in a minute just to show you how easy it is to do this. We can see that as the sort of day goes on, the temperature in the loft gets really, really high, because it's basically an unprotected space, so the heat of the sun is bearing down on the loft, and it's just capturing it in that loft space, and it's insulated so it can't go anywhere, that heat, so it just basically just builds up. And if we compare that, for example, to the summer house, which is the robot lab, it's pretty consistent, and the reason it's consistent is because it's air conditioned, so it's almost guaranteed to be the same temperature all the time. The hall sensor is probably a little bit inaccurate. This was a sensor I made a long time ago using an ESP32 MicroPython, and I think it was a DHT11, so it's not massively accurate, and I think it's about 3 or 4 degrees out as well. What else have we got on here? The summer house. So I think this is that's the actual air conditioner. The one that's outdoor is the one that's connected to, that's the Urban. That's the Urban sensor that's on the outside of the house, and it's only taking a couple of readings every 15 minutes, so that's why it's like that. Then we have outside temperature. I'm not sure which one that's coming from. It might actually be the Philips Hue infrared motion detector. That has also got a BME 280, I think, inside, so you can take all the temperature, humidity readings from them as well, which is quite cool. So that's an example of what we can do with dashboards in Grafana. So let's set one of these up because they're really fun to do. So what we're going to do, create a new dashboard. We're going to create a new panel. And because we've got all our data going into the influx database from our Node-RED, from our MQTT broker, from our Enviro, we can basically just bring that data in. So if I go down to test, I'm going to say I want this to come from the weather bucket, where now this is where, do you remember when I had that array that split things to 2 different things like location and name? So location or sensor. So if I go for sensor, I can then say show me the let's have a look, the indoor upstairs data, and the field that I want you to display is going to be temperature. So if I just select that there, you can see they're the temperature readings over the past 6 hours. So if I move that back to, let's say, the last 24 hours, we can see that pattern. Now, I don't like that they're like individual dots. So what we can do in Grafana, we can change that so that, if I just scroll up here, connect null values. If I say always, we get that nice connected line. If we don't like the fact that it's sort of jagged, we can click on the line interpolation, make that smoother. And if we want to do things like change the opacity of the fill, we can then bring that up like so. We can have that however we want that to work. You can choose the colours and all that kind of stuff yourself if you like, but it looks pretty nice, doesn't it? And then at the very top there, we can just change the name of the panel. So let's call that temperature, like so. So if I now, the other thing that we can do is down here, it just says weather mean, which doesn't really help us out. So at the very bottom here, this alias, we can change that to be, I think it was the indoor, indoor upstairs. So if I just call it that. So if I just apply that, we've now got this this dashboard, and we can resize that if we want to as well, make that as large or as small as we like. And whenever we want to query this over different periods of time, we can just do that by just dropping the, show me the values over the past couple of hours or past 2 days or whatever. You can see there the cycle of the days. Now, say we want to have more than one sensor on the same graph. That's very easy to do as well. So let's just go into temperature, edit, and let's go down to, let me see, we're going to click on query at the bottom here. Let me just move that widget out of the way there. So now we get another query, just like we had before. We can then say, yep, it's another weather one. This time it's going to be, so this is temperature, isn't it? So let's go for the outdoor one. And let's select temperature in there. Oops, clicked on the wrong bit there. Temperature, like so. And there you go, we've now got 2 lots of temperature coming in. And again, we've got that weather.mean, so let's give it a name. So this is outdoor robot lab, like so. Click apply. So now we can change that view to be over the last 6 hours, or last 12 hours, whatever we want to do, and it'll change both of the readings. So what I've got going on in the background, I have a Docker set up with clustered Pi. I've got 4 different Raspberry Pi 4s in a cluster, and on a couple of those different cluster nodes, I have different things running in Docker. So I've got an Influx database instance running, I've got Grafana instance running, I've got the Node-RED instance running. So I can provision these things quite quickly, and it's just the Raspberry Pi 4s managing all the workload there. Because when you click on that there's actually quite a lot going on behind the scenes. It's having to get all that data and crunch through it. And you can see there, I've actually not had these plugged in that long. Whereas if we bring in the existing weather station one and the Enviro Plus, we've got a lot of data from a long time ago there. So one of the other things I found on here, if you want to mix and match different readings, sometimes it makes sense to create separate influx database buckets, and then you can come up to this data source and just say mixed, and then you can bring in each one. So that's the test database. If I come down here and I want to bring in my other database, which is just called InfluxDB, I can then say, go to the weather, go to the location, and then look at all these different locations we've got. So let me instead of location, let's go for sensor, and then let's choose the Enviro Plus, for example. Now we can go for temperature on here, like so, and we've now got that. That's what that blue thing is there. So let's give that a nice name. So this is the Inside Robot Lab, like so, and we can click apply. So we've got a lot more data. We can go back, months and 90 days. This will probably take it quite a long time to crunch through that. But yeah, there you go. It's done it. So that's the data of the past. And the temperature doesn't change very much inside the robot lab because it's air conditioned. So it occasionally spikes as it tries to correct as I come through the door and so on, but you can see it's pretty consistent. So that's how quick it was just to grab 6 months, 90 days worth of data, 3 months, or we can look at 24. So that's just one type of reading. That was just the temperature readings. We can do that with all of them. So let me just save that data, that dashboard. So let's call this one live stream dashboard, and let's just correct that spelling there, because okay, and then let's go back to the other dashboard that I had, which is my weather dashboard. Okay, so this is we have this set up, so in the kitchen we've got one of those nice Alexa show, the big one, and we've got this as a sort of favourite on there, so you can just click on the button and just see all the different things. And I like it because you can actually predict what's going to happen. So if I go to last 24 hours and I look at the pressure, I can see pressure's falling, and that tends to mean a change of weather, probably for the worse. When it goes up, it tends to mean better weather. So this means that there's probably some kind of more cloudy weather on its way. So that's something I find quite useful to know. I also like to know just how much rainfall has fallen, and we can see over the past 24 hours we've not had any. In fact, if we go the past month, we probably haven't had that much rain, so it's just updating there. Yeah, we've had very little rain over there. And you can see all the other readings update to that time period as well. So I've got all the different temperature sensors there. I've not updated all the humidity ones as well. But it's always interesting to see which rooms have more humidity than others. We've got the humidity is like lines there. We have the wind speed, the oxidization and ammonia levels. That's coming from that particulate sensor as well. I noticed that wasn't on the sensor readings that you can take from the Urban. I don't know if they're not included in that. So the oxidization and NH3. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on that one as well, John. And I've got the light levels, is it? Let's have a look at this particular one. So this is the Enviro Plus living room. So yes, I've got another Enviro Plus. This is the Enviro Plus for Pico, which is the pack. That one is in my living room as well. So that's sound, this one is. So we're looking at what the sound levels are like. So that's another cool thing you can do. You can see, is your hearing being affected negatively because there's too much loud noise? Again, you could have this in a warehouse or, factory environment as well to see, what the noise levels are like and monitor that. We can look at that data over the past 90 days and so on. So what I'm going to do now is just go back to the dashboard, and that's how we can very quickly provision and set up. So just think about that workflow again. We've got the data coming from the actual device itself. This is sending it to an endpoint, which is the MQTT broker. The MQTT broker is then passing that data on to anything that's subscribed to it. And what we've got is this Node-RED flow, and I've got one for each of them. And then they're passing that data on. They're doing a bit of laundering of the data to clear it up, to make it the way I want it to be for Grafana. And then they're putting it into the Grafana databases. Currently, they're all going to both databases. I could probably get rid of the test one now and just have everything go to the main one, which is running on the Raspberry Pi 400 on my desk there. And then Grafana then picks that up from Influx and then presents that. And if you've not come across Influx before, it's a time series based database. So it's not like regular databases where you create tables and you have columns and rows. Everything's designed to be very, very speedy when it comes to getting measurements back based on what time the measurement was taken. So perfect for our usage there. Okay, let me go back to our keynote and let's have a see what else. So we did the provisioning. We've had a look at Node-RED and Grafana. Let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to cover off on there. So we've talked about config.py, main.py, and we've looked at capturing data, Grafana setup, creating a dashboard. Perfect. Okay, so if you've not joined our Discord server, you might want to consider doing that as well. So if you go to action.smarsfan.com/join-discord, you can join our Discord server and talk about all things Raspberry Pi and Enviros, as well as robotics, which is also the main focus of that group as well. So if you're not already on Discord, give that a go. It does seem to take a couple of minutes when you click on the, you submit your email address and then the link comes through. So you might have to check your junk just in case it gets sent there, but it might take 5 minutes and there's nothing I can do about that. That's just how long it takes Discord to send the link through. And if you want to follow me on social media, I'm on Instagram as Kevin McAleer 28, I think that's right. And then on Twitter as just KevsMac. And I prolifically tweet stuff about robots or whatever it is I'm working on. One of the things I did say I would do today, because we reached our goal of getting 9,000 subscribers on YouTube, I said I would release the files for a little project that I built, which you can just see on the screen to the right there. There's a little HAL 9000, and it's actually just a Raspberry Pi Pico holder. So a Raspberry Pi Pico W holder, and I've got a little NeoPixel just plugged into 3 pins there, and it's just cycling through the little colours. So we can make a little HAL 9000, or this one's ALF 9000. And you can also see something interesting there, which will be another video that we'll do shortly, which is on the automation hat, the automation, sorry, not hat, automation 2040W, which you can see there in the center of the screen. And G has created this amazing clean room demo. So there's a little door, there's some buttons for authorizing and not authorizing people to enter the room. And there's a big fan on the right hand side that will blast all the air through so that people can be nice and safe. So that's just behind me. Where is that? Just there, actually. Trying to move my finger. There we go. Just there. I've also got some other crazy projects. You can probably just see there. There's a Halloween decoration, and there's also a clock that is on there. It looks like a coffin there, but it's actually a clock. So I've got a project to do on there as well. So yes, that's everything I wanted to cover off on the way of information. So yes, oh, there we go. And if you want to help support the show, you can do a super thanks. So if you're doing watching this on replay, there is a little super thanks button on YouTube. If you're watching live now on the chat, you can do a super chat, and again, that can help support the channel. And if you want to buy me a coffee, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Kevin McAleer, and that will also help the channel. And finally, if you want to join the YouTube membership program, that also is quite cheap. I think it's about £3 a month, something like that. Cool. So I'm only just seeing the chat messages come through now. So if you've been chatting away, I can only start bringing up messages that have been sent just now. And this is the point of the video that we always get to where I say to people who are watching this on replay, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.